Hello everyone, welcome to this channel. My name is Rohit and today we are going to discuss about why bad relationship feels so hard to leave. Like me, many of people have been through these situations and I will today tell you what is the reason and what practical steps you can take to get out of this type of situation, and believe me, this will really gonna help you. So stay till the very end and let's get started. Most people think people stay in bad relationships because they do not know the relationship is bad. But that is usually not the real problem. Most people know. They know when the communication feels wrong, they know when the pattern keeps repeating, they know when they feel smaller, more anxious, more confused, or less like themselves. They know when they have started explaining behavior they would never accept for someone they love. The question is not why don't they see it? The deeper question is why does seeing it still not free them? That's where the real mechanism begins, the clarity trap. A bad relationship rarely feels bad all the time. That's what makes it confusing. If it were consistently painful, consistently cold, consistently disrespectful, the decision would be easier. Your nervous system would have one clean signal: leave. But most bad relationships don't operate like that. They operate through contrast. One day there is distance, criticism, silence, control, avoidance, betrayal, or emotional chaos. Then suddenly there is a warmth, an apology, a soft conversation, physical affection, a memory of how things used to be, a moment where they look at you like you still matter. And that moment becomes evidence. Not evidence that the relationship is healthy, evidence that it could be. And that is the trap. You are not attached only to what the relationship is, you are attached to what the relationship occasionally becomes. And those occasional moments are powerful because they arrive after pain. Relief after an anxiety feels stronger than peace ever does. So, the relationship teaches your body a dangerous equation. Pain means love might be coming. That's when clarity stops being enough. Because intellectually you may understand the pattern, but emotionally your system has been trained to wait for the next good moment. The intermittent reward loop. There is a psychological principle called intermittent reinforcement. It means reward becomes more compelling when it arrives unpredictably. A consistent reward is pleasant, an unpredictable reward is addictive because the brain keeps checking, hoping, scanning, and waiting for the next hit. This same mechanism is often discussed in trauma bonding, where cycle of harm mixed with occasional affection can make leaving an abusive or harmful relationship extremely difficult. Now translate that into love. If someone is kind every day, your nervous system relaxes, right? If someone is cruel every day, your nervous system eventually protects itself. But if someone is unpredictable, your nervous system becomes locked in anticipation. You start studying their mood, you notice their tone, you reread messages, you think before speaking. You become sensitive to tiny changes in their face, their timing, their energy. Not because you are dramatic, because unpredictability trains hyper awareness. The relationship becomes a slot machine for emotional safety. You pull the lever by being patient, forgiving, attractive, quiet, understanding, less needy, more available, more impressive, more careful. Sometimes you get warmth, sometimes you get punishment, sometimes you get nothing. And because the reward is inconsistent, you try harder. That is the loop. The more unpredictable the affection becomes, the more focused you become on earning it. The more focused you become on earning it, the less you notice what the relationship is costing you. The hope version. People don't stay only because of love, they stay because of a version, the version from the beginning, the version from the good months, the version that apologized with tears, the version that held them when they were breaking, the version that knew exactly what to say after doing exactly what hurts. This is where the mind creates a split. There is the real person in front of you, and there is the hope version inside you. The hope version is loving, available, accountable, safe, mature, and ready to change. The real person may give you flashes of that, just enough to keep the hope alive, so you don't feel like you are choosing between staying and leaving. You feel like you are choosing between giving up and believing. That framing is brutal because leaving starts to feel like betrayal. Not betrayal of the relationship as it is, betrayal of the relationship as it could have been. And that possibility becomes emotionally expensive to abandon. What if they finally change after I leave? What if we were close? What if I didn't try hard enough? What if this pain is just the hard part before it gets better? So you stay not because the present is good, but because the imagined future still has a pulse. That's how hope becomes a cage. The identity investment. The longer you stay, the harder it becomes to leave. Not because the relationships improve, because your identity gets more invested. At first, you are just dating someone. Then you are someone who has been through a lot with them. Then you are someone who has defended them. Then you are someone who has explained them to friends. Then you are someone who has forgiven things you never thought you would forgive. And eventually, leaving doesn't just mean ending the relationship, it means facing every version of yourself that stayed. That is a much harder confrontation because now you are not only grieving the person, you are grieving the time, the effort, the loyalty, the emotional labor, the private sacrifices nobody saw. This is why people often stay past the point of clarity. They are not confused about the pain, they are overwhelmed by the cost of admitting what the pain means. If you leave after one red flag, you can say, that wasn't right for me. If you leave after 5 years, you may have to say, I abandoned myself for a long time. That sentence is heavy. So the mind protects itself. Maybe it is not that bad. Maybe every relationship is hard. Maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe if I communicate better, things will change. Sometimes those thoughts are genuine attempts to understand, but sometimes they are self protection because accepting the truth would force action, and action would force grief. The nervous system mistakes chaos for chemistry. A stable relationship can feel boring after an unstable one. That sounds strange until you understand what the body has been trained to expect. When your relationship moves through tension, distance, conflict, repair, intensity, and relief, your nervous system gets used to spikes. The high feels high because the lows are low. The affection feels powerful because it arrives after deprivation. The reunion feels meaningful because disconnection came first. So, when someone treats you with consistency, your body may not immediately recognize it as love. It may recognize it as flat, too calm, too predictable, too easy. This is where people confuse activation with connection. Anxiety feels like passion, uncertainty feels like attraction, relief feels like intimacy. But peace is not supposed to feel like withdrawal. Love is not supposed to require a recovery period, and chemistry is not automatically compatibility. Sometimes, what you call chemistry is your nervous system recognizing a familiar wound, not a future or pattern. The repair illusion. Bad relationships survive on repair movement. Not real repair, repair thereafter. Real repair has three parts: recognition, responsibility, repeated change. The person sees what happened, owns their part without twisting it back onto you, and changes the pattern enough that your body can trust the difference. Repair thereafter only intimates this. There may be apologies, there may be tears, there may be promises, there may be one good week, but the pattern returns. The relationship resets emotionally without changing structurally. That's when apology becomes another form of reinforcement. You are not receiving transformation, you are receiving temporary relief. And because relief feels good, you mistake it for progress. Look closely. The question is not did they apologize? The question is did the system change? Did the behavior change when they were stressed? Did the pattern change when they didn't get what they wanted? Did the communication change when you brought up pain? Did your body feel safer 3 months later, or did you just get better at managing the instability? That distinction matters. A relationship is not changed by emotional movement. A relationship changes when the repeated patterns changes. The social cage. People also stay because leaving is rarely private. Leaving changes your social world, your routines, your family conversations, your friends group, your weekends, your future plans, your living situation, your finances, your identity in front of other people. This is why advice like just leave often misses the mechanism. Leaving may be the right decision, but it is not always a simple action. Sometimes leaving means rebuilding an entire ecosystem. If you share a home, leaving involves logistics. If you share friends, leaving involves social loss. If you share money, leaving involves uncertainty. If you share children, leaving involves legal and emotional complexity. If there is abuse, leaving can even become dangerous, and safety planning matters more than dramatic confrontations. So the person stays because the relationship is painful, but the exit looks chaotic. The known pain feels more manageable than unknown disorder. That is not weakness, that is the nervous system chooses familiar suffering over unfamiliar risks. And that choice is deeply human. But familiar suffering still has a cost. The cost is that your life starts shrinking around the relationships. You stop saying certain things, you stop expecting certain things, you stop imagining certain possibilities. You slowly adapt to less, and the more you adapt to less, the more less starts feeling normal. A bad relationship does not usually destroy your standards all at once. It lowers them gradually. First, you accept a tone you dislike, then, you accept an apology without change, then, you accept distance after conflict, then, you accept being blamed for bringing things up, then, you accept emotional confusion at the price of closeness. Then eventually you stop asking for the kind of love you once thought was basic. This is how normal becomes distorted. The relationship trains your baseline downwards. What used to feel unacceptable starts feeling familiar. What used to hurt sharply becomes background noise. And after enough repetition, you don't ask, is this healthy? You ask, can I survive this? The question is a warning sign because love should not reduce your standard from thriving to surviving. Once survival becomes the goal, the relationship has already recognized your identity. You stop being someone who chooses love, you become someone who manages damage. People stay longer when they believe the relationship is their responsibility to fix. This happens especially when the other person turns every issue into a mirror pointed back at you. You express hurt, and suddenly you are too emotional. You ask for consistency, and suddenly you are needy. You point out disrespect, and suddenly you are starting problem. You ask for accountability, and suddenly they bring up your flaws. Over time, you stop evaluating the relationship and start evaluating yourself. Maybe I should communicate better. Maybe I should be calmer. Maybe I should be more patient. Maybe I should stop expecting so much. Self reflection is healthy, but self erasure is not. There is a difference between owning your part and owning the entire dysfunction. If your growth is always required before they treat you with basic respect, the relationship is not asking you to mature, it is asking you to disappear. And that is not love, that is control wearing the language of improvement. A healthy relationship gives you evidence of safety, not perfection, safety. You can raise an issue without punishment, you can be honest without being abandoned, you can have needs without being made to feel defensive, you can disagree without the entire bond being threatened. You can trust the conflict will lead to understanding, not emotional revenge. A bad relationship gives you evidence of instability, but then it gives you just enough evidence of warmth to confuse the pattern. This is why you need to stop asking, do they love me? That question is too easy to manipulate. A person can feel love and still behave destructively. A person can still miss you and still not be safe for you. A person can cry and still repeat the same harm. A better question is, what does this relationship repeatedly produce in me? Does it produce calm, clarity, self respect, growth, emotional safety? Or does it produce an anxiety, obsession, shrinking, confusion, and self doubt? The fruit tells you the root, not the promise, not the apology, not the potential, the repeated emotional consequences. The exit begins before the exit. Leaving a bad relationship usually does not begin with physically walking away. It begins with restoring reality. You need to name the pattern without romanticizing it. You need to stop turning occasional affection into proof of health. You need to stop measuring the relationship by its best moments and start measuring it by its repeated cycle. That is the first exit. The exit from confusion. Then comes the second exit, the exit from isolation. Bad relationships thrives when you process everything alone. Alone, your mind loops. Alone, you negotiate with your memory. Alone, the good moments become louder than the pattern. You need outside mirrors, a trusted friend, a therapist, a support line, a journal that records events exactly as they happened. Not because other people should decide your life, because your nervous system needs reality outside the emotional weather of the relationship. Then comes the third exit, the exit from identity dependency. You begin rebuilding proof that you can exist outside the bond. Small decisions, small routines, small boundaries, a small act of self respect. You do not wait until you feel strong enough. You act in ways that create strength. That is how self trust returns, not all at once, through evidence. If there is physical violence, coercive control, threats, stalking, sexual pressure, financial control, or fear of what they might do if you leave, do not treat this as a normal breakup. Treat it as a safety situation. The goal is not to win the final conversation. The goal is to get support, create a plan, protect your information, and leave in the safest way possible. A dangerous person does not become safe because you explain your pain clearly. Clarity is not protection. Support is protection. Planning is protection. Distance is protection. And if your body already knows you are not safe, listen to that signal before you negotiate with it. So let's talk about review. People stay in bad relationships for reasons that are deeper than ignorance. They stay because intermittent affection creates attachment. They stay because hope keeps the future version alive. They stay because identity becomes invested. They stay because chaos starts feeling like chemistry. They stay because repair movements imitate real change. They stay because living affects their entire environment. And they stay because the relationship slowly lowers the standard for what feels normal. The solution is not shame. Shame keeps the loop alive. The solution is reality, support, and repeated self respect. At first, you may not feel ready to leave the pattern, so begin by seeing it clearly. Then begin by telling the truth. Then begin by talking small action that prove your life can exist outside the relationship's emotional cycle. Over time, those actions rebuild your identity. You stop asking whether they might become different. You start asking whether you are becoming smaller. And once you can answer that honestly, the next move becomes clearer. So here are the action you can take. First, record. For the next 7 days, write down relationship pattern exactly as it happens. Not your interpretation, the facts. What happened, what was said, how it affected your body, and whether the issue actually changed afterwards. This breaks the emotional editing loop and gives you reality you can reread when hope start rewriting the story. Second is separate. Create one small pocket of life that does not belong to the relationship. A walk, a gym session, a friend call, a therapy appointment, a work block, a quiet morning routine. Protect it. The goal is to give your nervous system evidence that you can feel stable outside the bond. Third is decide. Choose one boundary that turns insight into behavior. It could be refusing circular argument, not accepting apologies without changed behavior, reconnecting with support, or creating a safety plan if there is abuse. The boundary matters because self trust does not return through thinking. It returns when you watch yourself act like your well being matters. If you found this content was helpful, then please share your observation in the comment section. And if you want me to cover any other topic which you want, then please let me know in the comment section. Until then, see you in the next video.